Welcome to Comic Book Straight Talk. This is Terry, the French Tickler.
Galleon.
And Eric, the Knucklehead Eaton. I guess it's just Dallion tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Captain Dallion. So Captain Dallion's not with us tonight. Today's a special day, guys.
It is.
Someone would have been 99 today. Who are we talking about?
Well, we've got Elvis is the king of rock.
Okay. We got Michael Jackson,
the
king of pop.
And
We got Terry, the king of bald. And now we got the king of comics.
King of Comics. This is what we're talking about today. Jack Kirby, King of Comics.
Jack Kirby, old Jacob Kurtzberg.
Yes.
For those that like to go by his real name.
actually one of the most influential artists of
comics.
Of comics, period, yeah. I can only think of maybe one or two others, but even then.
With his runs, what are you guys, some of your favorites?
Everyone has said that I always liked the Fantastic Four, and in preparing for this show, I got to doing some reflection about that. And
a little
meditation. Meditation, yes. Yeah. And really what I think drew me to the Fantastic Four was Kirby's art.
Okay. Is there any early issues that you just love the covers?
Oh, the 48's a good cover.
Oh, yeah.
The 48, 49, 50's are really awesome covers.
Galactus first Silver Surfer stuff. Yeah. Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
Not just his covers, but he's just prolific in all the characters that he created.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man, Inhumans, Galactus, Fantastic Four. The list just goes on and on and on.
Pretty much right now, any of the Marvel cinematic characters, he's had a hand in almost.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
It's pretty amazing his early stuff has carried through so long. I mean, some of his later stuff wasn't the greatest.
Well, right. When he went to Topps in the 90s, it wasn't as good. And even his 80s stuff kind of...
Are you saying the Secret City should have stayed a secret?
I'm thinking they shouldn't have even put the map out for that, where to find it, yeah.
That would be a hard city to find out.
They did do around that time a 3D comic that had glasses in it that said Jack Kirby, or Jack Kirby, the King of Comics on it.
Okay.
And supposedly, the comedian at the time, what's his name?
Oh, there was one comedian at the time.
The big comedian.
He's a big one.
Yes.
Rodney Dangerfield.
No.
Jerry Seinfeld.
TV. I didn't watch him, so it was...
I don't know.
Ran opposite of...
I don't know. Anyway, there was a comedian that...
But he thought he was saying that he was the king of comedy, and so he took issue with it because he thought he was the king of comedy.
Okay.
And then he found out he meant comic books, and he's all fine with it.
Well, maybe we'll have to Google that and let you guys know on the next episode who the king of comedy is. So he had a pretty interesting early life.
Mm-hmm.
He started drawing by actually tracing a lot of cartoon strips in their newspapers that you'd get, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think he hooked up with Joe Simon at Timely, and they
created
the man himself,
Captain America,
the first Avenger.
Yep.
So Cap came out in 1941.
Everyone loves the classic Captain America covers with him punching Hitler and.
Oh man, it was
just looking at the detail and everything. Those still hold up today.
Oh yeah, and comics then and comics still now, have a lot to do. Although it's superheroes and superpowers, it has a lot of real world events going on, and it's they've taken political stands and handle political issues, and also a lot of other issues facing humanity. Marvel's put cities to it, and DC puts fictitious cities that kind of mirror real life cities. Terry's favorite fictitious city is Gotham, and I'm sure Batman's handling stuff in Gotham right now.
I hope so. Well, before Kirby even started in comics, just as a kid, when he was really young, apparently he got a hold of some charcoal or something, and he was out in the hallway of the apartments, and he just drew all over the wall. And the landlord got a hold of the mom and said, "Look what Jack has done." And she's like, "Oh, what did he do again?" She goes out there and she sees it, and she's more like, "Oh, he did this," but more like in a happy tone. She couldn't believe, my son can do this.
Yeah.
Wow. And from there, during those times, he had to also, as he got older, work to help support the family.
Oh, yeah.
So he did a lot of art on, I guess, windows and stuff like that to support the family. He went to college for about a week, I think.
Well, he also got drafted.
Later on, he got drafted.
And a lot of the great artists back then did.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And when
Eisner.
they found out that he could draw, he actually landed on Normandy, I think, about a month, no, 2 months, about 2.5 months after D-Day.
No.
And they found out he could draw, so they sent him on reconnaissance. So he had to go advance, which is very dangerous, into the enemy territory, draw out, I guess, maps and buildings and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so eventually, his whole company got frozen. Basically, his feet, got ice over to where he got frostbite, basically. And that's when he finally got to come home.
To me, it's pretty amazing. If you think the world we live in, 7 billion people, how one person has influenced so much. I mean, you can talk about Stan Lee. Stan Lee's done a lot. You can love him, hate him. But Jack Kirby, look how much he's influenced comics now for close to 80 years.
Yeah, and I mean, even you ask artists today, coming up, and even big time artists, hey, who was your big influence? They're going to list off, and I can guarantee they're going to list 5 people, and Kirby's like in the top 2 to 3.
Right.
So
would you guys put him as your top artist? Or
I
in
would
the top
say,
5?
I would say definitely top 5. Probably, yeah, I would put him at top 1.
Okay.
As far as influences go, for comic books, probably number 1.
Oh, yeah.
As far as my personal preference, probably 4 or 5 in there, personal preferences. But yeah, I just
It's pretty crazy how much he's influenced, and he worked for Timely, which became Marvel. When
before that he worked for Fleischmann's for
he
about a
did.
week.
Yeah.
Doing what they call an in-betweener, or a cell wash or something to that effect, and he found it to be kind of a factory job for artists, and he just wasn't interested in that, so he left Fleischmann's Studios and went elsewhere.
Well, and he also, he drew under a lot of other surnames. He did Jack Curtis, Lance Kirby. There's a few others. I don't think he actually ever used his real name.
No, he finally settled on Jack Kirby because it reminded him of James Cagney.
Yeah.
He fancied himself at one time he wanted to be into movies, and he fancied himself a bit of a gangster.
Right.
And you know what? You're looking at the picture, the classic picture of him in that sweater, and him by that. I think it's on the you see it on their website and everything. He actually, if you put him in a suit, the Tommy gun, I can see him looking as a gangster. He was a gangster.
Yeah. But he grew up in some tough streets, and
had
a lot of fights as a kid, and a lot of those stories that he wrote come from his growing up. Especially just the as a young kid, the boy commandos and stuff came from that. Nancy Street Gang.
Yeah.
Where he grew up, being Austrian and being Jewish had to be pretty rough.
His family didn't have a lot.
There was definitely a lot of people that didn't like, anything that had to do with Germany, for World War II.
Or
World War I, and Jewish.
Writing Captain America, he had some Nazis supposedly downstairs calling up there saying, we're going to beat you up. And Jack Kirby said, well, I'll be right down.
Yeah.
And he got down there and he looked around. There wasn't anybody around. He wasn't a very tall guy. He was actually pretty short, but he was pretty stout in stature. And he grew up, like I said, on the tough street, so he probably knew how to handle himself pretty well.
With his influence with today's artist, even going back to like Ramita and stuff like that, anyone that's still alive that's done a lot of iconic work, do you guys see anyone kind of taking his mantle?
Actually, there's been a couple artists. Tom Scioli, I believe, is his name. He did the Godhead book from Image a few years ago. Really awesome kind of Kirby style. And also Ledron, the European artist, did several one-shots in that Kirby style. And it's just, you could definitely tell that he's got a Kirby style influencer. Yeah.
Very cool. Terry, is there any artist now that you kind of see being the next generation of Jack Kirby?
I think there's a lot of great artists out there. I just don't think anybody's going to influence the market like he did, though, with all of his creations.
Oh yeah, it's crazy that for the big two he worked both sides.
Just one mind.
His New God series for DC was really popular.
I actually think that was really kind of even beyond its time for then, and probably still beyond its time for now.
Well, he wrote. He got the idea from Tesla, and before it became a thing, he wrote about the atom bomb.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite work for Kirby on anything, Marvel, DC, whatever?
I don't know. I'm kind of with Dow. I mean, I really like his creation of a lot of this. Well, I mean, just tons of stuff came in the Fantastic Four that he created, and I've always been a fan of the Inhumans.
Yeah.
I just recently got a really low grade copy of the first appearance of Inhumans. I wish I'd picked that book up a lot earlier, but earlier though I did pick up all the Inhuman issues, and that was just I've always been a big fan of the Inhumans, especially Black Bolt. I always thought he was interesting. Just whispering, just blows things away.
Oh yeah, Black Bolt. What's that? First appearance 46, FF46, believe so.
No, it's like and maybe because 45 is his first.
Yeah,
because it's a red.
And then the full appearance of Black Bolt is
I think it's 46.
It's awesome red cover with him standing right in the middle of it.
Which might be with the way Marvel is, as far as with the Fox controversy, Fox owning all the rights to mutants, and Marvel now making everyone Inhumans instead of, whereas before, it's another mutant. It's now, it's another Inhuman. I mean, Civil War II now, with Ulysses being an Inhuman.
Well, I mean, that's just their mind, like you're say. They're just, we've got Captain America in the movies, we've got Thor, Hulk, Hawkeye, Black Widow, the FFs, the Inhumans that they're coming out with now, and supposedly they're going to bring the royal family to TV.
Yeah.
With Inhumans.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, all this, and as Terry said, come from one mind. The demon, taking a knight of Camelot and binding him to a demon. Yeah. Merlin bind him to a demon. I mean, they're getting ready to do stuff with him at DC.
Yeah, he had so much stuff going on in his mind. They said that eventually he had to stop driving because he would just start driving and he just start thinking about his stories and just drive right off the road.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy how many. I mean, with DC, he did a lot of the first issue specials. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the Demon runs, the New God runs. My favorite's probably the Captain Americas. I love the early Captain Americas. It's very, very pricey to, try to complete that run. But man, the artwork is so awesome looking. I mean,
like we said, he went back. He was with DC and Marvel before they were DC and Marvel, going back and forth with those companies.
Marvel pissed him off, and
him and Simon went in for a raise.
Even before it was Marvel, when
it was Timely.
Timely. Then he worked for DC's National,
right?
And he also, they created the romance book. The first black superhero. It just goes on and on.
Which it's interesting then, to see the transition from him, from being a child going to tracing all the comic strips and being the only outlet for comics then would have been, on your papers, the comics and the papers. And then, then they started coming out with the books and you saw a lot of Dell and all that stuff. And
he did stuff for Harvey.
He did work for Harvey, which Harvey did a lot of little dot and little polka dot and hot stuff, Little Devil.
I mean, he grew up at the time where there was the big Red Scare, and they had put the comic book code in place, and comics basically became worthless there for a while. And he was still, him and along with Simon and a couple of others, still kept comics alive during that period. Doing just a little bit here and there.
I've always wished to see Jack Kirby do an EC book, but he wasn't part of that group, but he was at that time.
Right.
And so it'd be kind of cool to have an issue, with Jack Kirby doing, Mystery in Space, or not Mystery in Space, but Weird Science.
Well, yeah,
or
he
something
did
like
all.
That,
he was.
But he did that in other books.
Influential in monster books. Definitely.
His horror stuff was just.
Which in the monster books, you got Groot and Bing Bang Boom.
Right.
Which to me, it's. With a lot of artists, they're really good with one style. Mm-hmm. Like with regular artists, you're good with portraits, or maybe you're good with landscapes. But he was very well blended with everything. I mean, you could say, because they went from, the Captain America style, which, was traditional superhero, but a lot of those were written for wartime, kind of to buffer them up, to make the soldiers feel good, and hey, we're beating the Germans and we're beating up Hitler and all that. And then for a while, you had a lot of the romance stuff was really popular. I mean, that's what you had.
Romance was selling like crazy.
The
thing that always strikes me about Kirby is I don't think anybody, whether you like his art style or not, you can't not say that his art was not just powerful. I mean,
right.
It's just an amazingly powerful pieces.
Well,
He would bring things, even though it wasn't 3D, before 3D came along and they were trying to make things 3D.
Yeah.
His books were already 3D. The way he stylized his characters and the way that they were, the forearm going out and the fist and attacking, and it was already had the 3D feel to it.
He was definitely ahead of his time. So.
Well, and look at what he cranked out a month.
Oh man!
I mean, that's just unheard of in these days. You can't even get an artist to stick on an 8-issue miniseries, without delays.
He would start working, and he wouldn't stop. His wife would come in and pull him out of his basement, which they called the dungeon, because he would go down there and work, and bring him to bed. And she would wake up later on, and he was back down in the dungeon working. Not only did he work quickly, he was known to be one of the fastest artists, but he would just hours upon hours just work constantly, just churning it out.
It's crazy to think then how little they got paid for what they did, and the passion that they still carried with it.
He was passionate throughout. I mean, if it wasn't for his wife later on, he would have been taken advantage of even more than he was.
Well, one of the stories I love here, and I read it all the time in different interviews and stuff, is someone will go to the house for dinner, and they're eating dinner, and Roz has cooked dinner, and after eating everything, they're all talking, and people get ready to leave, and Jack's just handing them, original art that he's done, and Roz is like, no, now, honey, you can't do that, just kind of keep, because she was more the business mind of the stuff, I think.
Would you want to have been invited for dinner then?
Yeah.
Can I come over tomorrow, please?
Well, there would be people that just showed up at their door, and they would be invited in, but before they could go talk about comics or whatever, Rosalind apparently made them a sandwich. They had to have a sandwich first, and then they would go and talk about comics and
kind of like the
he would just be down there, and he would just do them a sketch of whatever. What would you like a sketch of? He would just give his stuff away, but eventually she kind of, he was taken advantage of throughout his history, but she tried to do. It was hard to do that with a big business, to you can't go and but when it came to just giving away his art and stuff, she did what she could to make sure he wasn't taken advantage of. And they were married and had 4 or 5 children.
They had 4 kids, yeah.
4 kids, up to Jack Kirby's death. So they were married their entire lifetime.
Their whole life.
And there's not a lot of people that can say that, especially today.
It's pretty neat with the characters that he created, because the list is long. He created a lot of characters that had always supporting roles, and for someone to do that, 1 or 2 times is difficult. But he did hundreds of characters, and they all had supporting roles that were strong supporting roles. Captain America, Bucky,
Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, Jimmy Olsen. Very cool. As far as to think.
Not that he created Jimmy Olsen, but
right.
Elevated him a bit.
In Mr. Miracle, the relationship between Mr. Miracle and Big Barda was based off him and his wife. Now, Big Barda was based off of the lady that is in the mom in My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Uh-huh.
The mom, not the daughter, but the mom.
Was it the mom in the Big Fat Greek Wedding that you're trying to get to?
Yes.
Okay.
That was who the imagery was based off of, but the relationship was him and his wife. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and we did the Superpowers comic series for DC.
Yeah.
Which was fun. It was good. But I keep coming back to, I think the best thing he's done was his FFs.
Yeah, the Fantastic.
Which you had like 4 to 6 runs, complete runs on.
No, now see that's an exaggeration. Yeah, maybe
started out with 2 or 3.
But at the time, I remember I was a kid back in about 85, 86 when I started.
You heard it first. At one point, Captain Dalian was a kid.
A kid, yes. And I was buying pretty much anything out in the stands at the shop. And one of the customers of the Comic Empire, who's no longer with us, was talking to Mike, the owner, and talking about this Kirby guy. And I was like, oh, okay. And he showed me the art. And I learned from the gentleman that, all about Jack Kirby and the art and everything. That's where I kind of got the appreciation of it for his art was through him. And I could, can appreciate it and everything now. And it's just, it's a cool story.
It's pretty neat that he was also one of the first 3 Eisner award winners.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, to me, it's still baffling that someone can have that much influence. I mean, you look at covers now. You go to any comic shop and you just pull out, the weekly comics that came out this week, and you're like, okay, that looks cool. That looks cool. And there's some signature ways certain artists draw.
Mm-hmm.
But Kirby, you can always look at it and go, that's a Kirby.
Yep.
There's no confusion like, did Kirby do that or Kane do that? Or
even today, there's still about 6-8 maybe a year ago, they did the Kirby monster variants.
Yeah.
And they every once in a while they'll pull up a Kirby Marvel put a Kirby variant cover or something. Someone else's inked of his. And so
you look at Kirby's art and just at first you think it's just very simple cubistic style, I guess. But there's not really anybody or very few that can really reproduce what he does.
And see, you mentioned that, and the first image that comes to my mind about that is we go back to the FF, was them going inside Galactus's ship and showing how immense and all the detail he put into making that. I mean, most today's artists would just whitewash it in a few lines, that'd be it.
It was definitely a different appreciation as far as the craft of doing it. I mean, when they sold the stories, they made sure. I mean, when you read those stories, when you read old Kirby books, you really fall into the story. I mean, you can really immerse yourself, with your imagination, in the world that he's created. Secret City maybe not, but
like I said, I mentioned the FF, but some of his other stuff, like I said, the Demon.
Oh yeah,
really well done.
Talking about the detail that he put into Kirby said that he just couldn't do that. He was one of his early jobs. Gentleman Fox, maybe.
Okay.
I can't remember. He would do stuff to cut corners and to make it a lot quicker, a lot shorter, and that would be just kind of blanking or whitewashing something out. And Kirby is like, I just can't do that.
Yeah.
And he would just draw in the detail.
His work. I mean, he had a really good work ethic. As far as he knew he was a comic book artist, but he also knew he had to have a fan base to appreciate it. So
going back to my brain fart, it was Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson,
that comedian. He saw that he had.
That's why you're holding the envelope up against your head.
That was it.
That was it.
But he thought it was that Kirby was saying he was the king of comics, and Carson was like, "No, I'm the king of comics."
Okay, so no longer Google it.
And actually, a big thing is Carson was a big fan of Kirby's in the later after all that. I mean, Johnny Carson was a huge comic fan.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's pretty. Kirby's he passed away 22 years ago, in '94.
Mm-hmm.
And he still has that much touch over the craft.
And we're talking his comics.
Right.
Let's not forget that when he left comics for a while, or scaled back, I should say scaled back, probably word, and went and did animation.
Yeah.
In the 60s, and you had the Fantastic Four cartoon, which looked just like they took pages of his own stuff and just animated it. I mean, it was just the same style. And he went for Hanna-Barbera.
Hanna-Barbera, and my favorite was that he worked on, I don't know to what depth he did, but Thundar the Barbarian.
Okay.
As a kid, I could not miss an episode of Thundar the Barbarian.
Now, did you ever get in trouble and had to miss an episode?
No.
He always made sure he minded his P's and Q's.
He was a good little boy.
He was a good little boy.
Good little tickler.
I did get in trouble one time when I was younger, and I right about that time they were having that 2-part Captain America series with Reb. What was his name? Was it Reb something?
Oh, in the 70s?
Where he's driving around in the van. He was a surfer.
Yeah.
And
he touched base on that on an earlier
he did,
show.
Yeah.
He got in trouble. And
that's when I got in trouble, and I missed that.
32 years later, he YouTubed it, and he was like, "Yes,
finally got to watch it."
Finally caught up with
it. Was so
Butler.
And it wasn't Alfred. They weren't in the Prius.
FF, Thundar, and the Herculoids.
Herculoids. One little controversy is, did Jack Kirby create Spider-Man?
Yeah.
I have always heard that he did the preliminary stuff, yeah. And then Stan gave it to Steve Ditko to do. So
I think it was, at that time, Kirby was the leading, the go-to guy. He did all the conceptualization and helped out with just practically everything. So he definitely had to touch on it. But even before that, there's information that this character basically came from his Archie character, The Fly. And even before that, another character maybe even given another guy maybe even given. I had that written down here. We had given him ideas. He had a character called the Silver Spider, and I think they sent that into Harvey, and the editor there looked it over, and he wasn't too impressed with the Silver Spider. Said it was a typical, character of that time, and he wanted it to be more the character to be more Spider-esque. So this guy, editor Sid Jacobson, suggested a lot of different ideas that eventually turned into Spider-Man, such as him being able to possibly, walk on walls, do acrobatic tricks, use silken ropes to move on, silken threads, and just various things that would later turn into Spider-Man. And later on, even Steve Ditko mentioned that in some of the early scripts that he got from Stan, said that he wanted to use a power ring in which the character would turn into the Spider-Man or whatever, which harkens back again to the Fly.
Right.
And so there's just a lot of evidence that he had most of the ideas for the Spider-Man, so that it just wasn't solely Stan Lee or Ditko. Not that I'm saying Ditko didn't draw or come up with a lot of stuff himself. There's just a lot of information that supports that Kirby definitely had a strong hand in the creation of Spider-Man.
Which, there's a lot of controversy as far as, as with Stan Lee and the people that created the characters, and him trying to take over ownership and all that stuff, and trying to attribute it to himself.
Well, I think Kirby was a little ticked off at all the media attention that Stan Lee was definitely getting, but at the same time, Stan Lee was a mouthpiece for Marvel and had that gift of gab, and would get out there and could talk easily about what's going on with Marvel and the characters and the creations and the storylines. And I think Kirby resented that a little bit. At the same time, whenever Stan may have an idea or something, I think Kirby also would change it via his art.
Right.
He could force it that way. So
do
I
you
think there was a little bit of contention between those two.
With the Sunday night dinners, was Stan invited over to Jack's house?
Probably not.
No original art for Stan.
No, Stan didn't get the original art.
Do you think they call each other Jacob and Stanley?
Well, Marvel kept most of Kirby's art.
Yeah.
Eventually, they did.
And then they dumpstered it a lot too.
They filed a lawsuit, and they did get over 1,000 pieces back, but that's just trivial compared to all the art that he did have.
Granted, the person that did help get the art back at one time in the 70s, maybe early 80s, was Neil Adams, which he'd be more than happy to tell you the story because that he helped that Stan Lee get the art.
Well, is Captain Dalian not a fan of Neil Adams?
Neil Adams tries to help a lot of artists.
He does.
Well, he's a great guy. Nicest person you can ever meet.
And another group of people that helped get more stuff also was the Image guys.
Yeah.
Rob and Jim and Todd.
Todd, yeah.
Yeah, the Kirby children, they did file a lawsuit.
Several lawsuits.
Several lawsuits that eventually, at first it was Marvel won it, and they filed for
an
appeal, and before that ever came to the court, there was a settlement of some kind.
So with this being his 99th birthday, kind of a celebratory episode, your favorite pick, Captain Dalian, is Fantastic Four. I'm sticking with Captain America.
I would say Fantastic Four and Thor.
Yeah. So we've used those three, Terry. You can't use them. Which one are you going to go with as far as your favorite Kirby?
Well, like I said earlier,
you can't go Fantastic Four.
I'm not. I'm going Inhumans.
Okay, Inhumans, which branched out from the Fantastic.
That's great.
Well, Iron Man's pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let you do Iron Man. Okay.
But we're talking about the lawsuits and stuff like that. That could probably, that's sort of an interesting topic as well. I mean, talking about who really owned the rights to these characters at the time, and dealing into the work for hire at the time.
Because there's definitely a lot of freelance, and that's why a lot of them use different surnames. For Company A, you're Billy Bob, and Company B, you're
Bob Billy.
That way you can pick up two paychecks.
I personally don't think that the children have a right to sue for it. I mean, most of the artists knew it was work for hire back then.
Yeah.
Well, I think but
if the artist is still alive, and the company is like, there was a story where Kirby's assistant. They were going somewhere, and Rosalind was going into some store, and there's a Toys R Us across the street, and the assistant goes, "Hey, let's go. You go to Toys R Us and look around." And Jack was like, "No, no, I cannot go into Toys R Us."
Okay.
And
He was more of a KB Toys fan.
Yeah.
well, eventually, Rosalind spoke with the assistant later on, and she told him that it's just too depressing for him to go in there and to see all of this stuff that Marvel is just getting money from off of his creations.
Do you
Not
think?
not that he didn't resent. I mean, he loved drawing and he loved giving away his original art, but
Still got to be rough.
it is.
Knowing
I
they
mean,
profit that much off
they're
you.
profiting off of him, and they're not.
And they don't even credit
and
you.
Yeah, they could just compensate you for it. I mean,
Well, now that's what the lawsuits have done. Is that now you see
That's-
Captain America created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, or,
Right.
or Black
Which
Panther
actually,
created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
right? I'm not saying
the
that they shouldn't
Mel-
be.
Right.
I'm just saying that the
Did
kids.
you see the letter Mel had? That he
Mel
had-
Collector
I,
Man.
Yeah.
I did see that. Yeah.
Mel Collector Man, yeah, wrote to Marvel in the early '60s,
Mm-hmm.
talking about how cool Captain America was, and hey, it wasn't Stan Lee, and they wrote back, we've never said Stan Lee created it. He just wrote some of the stories. It was Joe Simon and Jack Kirby.
Now, I don't know the full story. Do either you know the full story about when Simon filed for his copyright? Jack Kirby was currently working at Marvel, and Jack Kirby and Simon created Captain America. I'm wondering what the full story. I need to do some research and read into that myself, I guess. But what was Kirby's position at that point when he was working at Marvel, and Simon was filing for his copyright for Captain America?
You'd think it'd almost be conflict because of the two. Conflict of interest because
Well, and a lot
he's
of
still working for
I
the
was
company
thinking
and he's co-creator.
But did he sign his rights away to Marvel on Captain America?
I don't know.
I don't think. Well, the thing on that is
I need to
anytime
read
you
more on
cash
that,
the,
find
the
out.
checks had
Or
a
if
thing
anybody
on
out there knows and can give me more information on that,
Yeah,
I'd
definitely,
appreciate
definitely post about it on our Facebook page,
Right.
Comic Book Straight Talk. The checks had a thing that's saying if I cash this check, you basically you gave up all rights, and so a lot of people are like, well, is that a contract? And like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I mean,
He couldn't pass the bar. He
it was
tried
too
3
tough.
times.
I tried to take it in Braille. Reading too much Daredevil.
So-
I thought I knew a lawyer.
Do you think Jack Kirby's kids love comics, or are they just like, God, I hate
Well,
these
actually,
comics?
one of his sons actually has written some, taken some of the stuff, some ideas, and have written.
They was doing something maybe in a possible movie or something at one point. I don't know if that ever saw fruition, but no, they really cared for what their father did.
Yeah.
So I mean, they sued Marvel.
Oh,
so
well, yeah.
they cared. I mean, but no, I've seen some interviews with them, and they cared about Jack. They cared about what he was doing. They cared about the comics. They cared about the industry. They didn't care that he was taken advantage of by the industry, which most artists were at the time. Although they kind of knew what they were getting into at that time. So,
Right.
But yeah, the kids definitely cared.
It's kind of strange, that kind of time period from, you look probably 40s to 60s, early 60s, mid 60s. It seemed to cross the board with other types of professional things. You look at baseball players. Then, baseball player was paid slightly more than your average working man. And, that was kind of the appeal for adults then because, when you're sitting at, Wrigley Field, Yankee Stadium, I could be that guy. He just makes a little more than me because, when it was off season, especially in the 40s, they would get second jobs to support themselves. And it was still the owners making all the big money. And same thing with these publishing companies. They're making all the big money. All these people that are creating all these characters for comics, pay them nothing, let them eat, but, make sure that they can't, supersize their meals at the time. And it's definitely changed by leaps and bounds, more so in, baseball than it has comics. I mean, but it's definitely changed, I think, for the better as far as you have to compensate someone that's going to provide that much influence on a particular group of people.
Well, and that's like because he wasn't getting compensated for everything he did at Marvel. That's why he kind of left Marvel at that point. They wouldn't even give him a sort of a title or position, a higher title or higher position at that
I
time.
don't think they would give him a contract. I thought what he wanted was a contract, and Marvel wouldn't give him one.
And so he went to DC, and then he got kind of the same thing there too.
He got a contract though.
But he kind of got shafted there.
But then when you got to think to kind of do a little Marvel splurge,
they went back to Marvel.
A what if issue. What if Jack Kirby got the contract? You imagine how many more characters
well, I mean,
he could have came out with? All the storylines?
Well, think about it. You pretty much
we wouldn't have
Eternals are the new gods in a sense.
Yeah.
You know,
we wouldn't have comics the way they are now without Jack Kirby.
I know, but what if he got the contract?
Hey. What if he never went to DC and stayed?
What if he didn't get in? What if he went into sales and never got into comics?
That's true.
That's blasphemy, Terry. That's blasphemy.
Ads and stuff. That's what Simon eventually went back to.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know if he went back to, but went to there for a while.
Well, a lot of artists did that.
Yeah, a lot of artists did.
Well, you had to survive.
Yeah,
right.
You had to go to where the money was.
Make $5 on a comic, make $15 off, advertising. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Terry, you're in graphic design, so do you feel you're underappreciated?
Sometimes.
Yeah. He loves his job, so if you guys listening, don't fire him. So, he definitely loves his work. He loves making anything
else
you guys want.
Have to say about Mr. Kirby? I mean, I'm sure there's more we can say, but
key issues he's created to tie in with a Terry Hot pick, a retro Captain Dalian pick. Any key issues you guys think of that Kirby did the art besides Fantastic Four #1? That is a key issue, slightly out of. Yeah, it's a little higher book.
Throw something out to look for when you're out there hunting comics.
Okay.
There's a lot of Kirby signatures, I think, still out there floating around, especially in some of his later stuff like Viking Heroes.
Right.
And
which was a good read. If you haven't heard of it, don't worry. Not many people have.
If you get a chance and you're in the dollar bin, you find some Viking Heroes or stuff like that, go ahead and flip to that first page and see if there's a Kirby signature on there. Because they're not going to find, you can't go get a signature anymore, but I think there's still some floating around here and there, especially on some of those later comics.
Which if you do, if you remember back to our previous podcast, using the grading company CBCS, you can go through their verified signature program, the VSP, and they can authenticate it. But like Terry said, open the cover, and then it was very popular for the artist, the writer, or the inker to sign on the first page near the bottom. The cover signatures are not that old as far as people signing books. You started seeing that kind of mid-late 90s, early 2000s. But before, they'd always do the cover. The inside of the cover.
If you don't find one out in the wild like that, getting a Kirby signature, say off eBay or just somebody trying to sell it, it's going to demand, $100 to $300 by itself just for the signature.
Yeah. Which actually, above us, since we're in the secret basement, Comic Empire has one for sale.
On Viking Heroes, actually.
On Viking Heroes,
yeah.
Interestingly enough. How much is it? Captain
How much is Mike wanting for it?
How much is at $100? So see?
$100. You just trade a $100 bill. You can get a signature from one of the greatest, most influential people in comics. You'll never find another Jack Kirby. Just like baseball, you won't see any more Mickey Mantles. No more Babe Ruths. I mean, there are going to be people drinking
or Ty
problems. Nope. Ty Cobbs that like to beat up people in the crowd. I don't mind if he has no arms. I'll get him.
or Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, or Jackie Robinson. Yeah. So, very crazy.
So I guess to sum it up, I just want to say happy birthday, Jack. We still appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's still the king.
So. Still the king of comics.
Yep.
So thank you for all the great stuff and all the happy stories you've brought people before us, people at us, and people to come. So questions, comments, make sure you check out our Facebook page, like Captain Dalian mentioned earlier, is Comic Book Straight Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to us. We have it on YouTube. It's under Comic Book Straight Talk. Same thing for Google Play and iTunes, collectorcon.org. It's uploaded there. Make sure you check back each and every Sunday. Still send us your suggestions on the Facebook page. Let us pick out something that you want us to go over. For Comic Book Straight Talk, I'm Eric the Knucklehead Eaton.
Captain Dalian.
Terry the French Tickler French.